Hi, I'm Kathryn Sturrock and I'm going to talk you through a tutorial using an off-centre gatefold card here. This is a collection, it's vintage chic, floral romance, and this has been created in conjunction with Craft Creations. Now what we're going to do is show you how to make this simple card, and there are variations on a theme as well, which I'll talk to you about as we go through the tutorial. So I'm just going to pop this to one side and bring in, first of all, our blank card. Now you can see it is off centre, it is a gatefold, and you can see why it's been called off centre, because you've got the shorter side or the narrower side and also the slightly wider side. You could use it the other way up. It's entirely up to you which way you do it. In fact, for this tutorial, I think I'll do it the opposite way to the one that we've already created. So bringing in, first of all, I'm taking from the Vintage Chic range one of our beautiful inserts. This is just stunning. There are so many different designs, but I particularly like this one to go with the other papers that I've chosen for my card. So very easy to attach these. Just glue them or take them down to the centre of the card, opened out of course, because that's going to create that beautiful insert. You could overstamp that, or you could just leave it blank if you want to add your own sentiments as well. So I'm just going to add some tape to the back of this. I've chosen the double-sided tape rather than a wet glue, just because we don't have to wait for that drying time, and also it stops any of the paper crinkling a little bit. Some glues are wetter than others, so do be careful what sort of glue you use. There we go. One final piece, and you can see with this particular design it doesn't matter which way you get it because it's the same both sides. You've got that beautiful floral border at both edges. Now I'm placing that right in between the two score lines, and it allows a tiny little border all the way around, so it gives you a really neat edge. Now you could of course ink the edges if you prefer, but I personally think this one should stay exactly as it is. Now we're going to work on the outside of the card, and I've chosen, again, of course, from the Floral Chic paper, we've got, sorry, the Floral Romance there. I've chosen this beautiful script background paper. Now I've cut this just to allow a 1/4 inch border all the way around. You can change that width if you so prefer. It's entirely up to you what border you want to leave there, and you could layer further as well if you wanted to. Now I am going to use a little bit of ink on this one. Although we've got a variation of colour around the edge, I do think it would be nice just to kind of pull the colours together a little bit, and also it does give it that more vintage look as well. So I'm just using some Distress Oxide. This is the walnut stain, so it's quite a dark reddish brown. So I'm not going to overload it. I'm just going to add a little bit of colour to the edges, and also I can bring it in a little bit further on the corners there as well, but that's again entirely up to you. I'm not going to go too heavily with it. I do want to keep it quite light. So simply go all the way around, adding the ink to the edges there, and then we're ready to pop that onto our card. And you can see there how that sort of pulls everything together. The colours as we build the papers up are all going to match perfectly, and the colours will pull together and balance out beautifully. So a little bit more tape on this one. And we're going to place this down. I'm not going with any foam pads, I'm keeping this completely flat, just so it sits very well. So again, take the backing off the tape. Once again, if you prefer to use a wet glue, you certainly can. If you want to allow time for moving things around, just make sure it's not a glue that's far too wet that's going to overload the cardstock. So we'll place that straight in the centre there. There we go. And then I'm going to just grab another piece of cardstock. Now I have pre-cut this, and you can see currently it's the same width as the cardstock that I've already placed on there, but we're going to change that one because I am actually going to distress the edge further, not just with ink but by tearing. So I've got a square because I've also chosen my little topper that I'm going to use on this one as well. Now it was a case of, is it this one? Or shall we go with this one? I think I'm going to stick with this one actually, but you have got so many choices within the kit of course. The other piece of paper that I'm going to use, the other topper that I've taken from the kit, is this one, so you can see the colours are tying in beautifully. So what I'm going to do is just tear around the edge of the square that I've cut. Now this is about 4.5 inches square, but you can adjust the size. But because I'm tearing, obviously I'm making the width of it, or the whole size of it is going to be a little bit smaller. So do bear that in mind if you're distressing the edges and you need to tear them, but you need to cut them a little bit bigger. Now you'll notice that I'm tearing towards myself here, and the reason for that is because it exposes the white core of the card. It gives you more of that sort of fibre, fluffy edge there. If I go against that, if I tear backwards away from myself, you wouldn't see the fibres so much. So it is personal choice, but I particularly like to see those fibres because it adds to that distressed finish. And of course the Vintage Chic selection, the floral romance that we've got here, the cardstock is absolutely stunning. It's been printed on a parchment that it's very authentic to look at it with that vintage look, and it's excellent quality as well. So you can see now that's just going to sit in the centre of my card, and we'll be able to put the topper on the top of that. I am going to tear the edges of this one as well. You could keep this one clean. I have done on the other sample, but this one I'm just going to take a little bit away, tearing towards myself again, just to make sure that we've got that distressed edge, but I don't want to tear too much into the design. It is beautiful, so I don't want to take too much away from this one. But I am just going to make it work with the background paper. So once again, just take away the edges. You can really see what a difference it makes to expose that core. And then we're going to ink these up as well. Now you could even use your little torn edges, keep those. You could build collages up, use them in your journals as decoration. It's just too lovely to throw away any of this. Okay, so almost there. There we go. So you can see now we've got our two toppers ready to layer together, but I am just going to use the ink again just to pull the colours together on those torn edges. So again, a tiny bit of ink on here. I'm not overloading it at all. But because we've got the fibres exposed now, as I go around in a circular motion with the ink, it does even create more of a distressed look, and it will curl some of those little soft bits of paper as well, which I quite like, rather than it looking completely flat. Now what I am going to do as well on this one, on the background one, I'm actually going to turn over and add a little bit of ink to two opposite corners. And then I'm going to purposely just roll these a little bit, so I do want, again, that look of aged paper. So it's just been caught and worn a little bit on the corners. So we'll do the two opposite, and the reason I inked on the back is obviously because when I'm rolling this, I'm exposing that colour on the back, and I didn't want it to look too clean and crisp. Okay, so that bit's done. We'll just ink up the main topper as well. So same thing, you can see now that ink is really pulling the colours together where I've got those torn exposed edges. I do think any of the cards that I create can be created with a nice clean look or a distressed vintage look. So what I'm going to do now is just place this straight in the middle. You could go further to the top and add a sentiment at the bottom, but I'm actually going to go into the centre there. And once again, I'm going to use the double-sided tape. And I'm not really so bothered about it going right to the very edge, because I don't want to stick this completely flat. I want that little bit of movement on the corners. I don't want that to sit back down and be totally flat. So we'll just place that there. And then I'm going to do the same with the topper as well. Now you could raise this on foam pads if you wanted to, if you wanted more dimension, but I'm actually going to keep it quite flat. You can add lots of embellishments, gems, you can ribbon, and flowers of course will look beautiful. So we'll just pop that there. And this is really starting to come together now. And then the final piece is going to be the topper that's come from the Vintage Chic Floral Romance set at the other side. Now you can see the colours are starting to balance really beautifully, because I've got the florals there in the main topper, which match of course with the florals here as well. I like the fact I've got a butterfly and a bird, and then if I open up and just remind you what's inside, you can see everything is working beautifully. So just to make sure that it all looks perfectly matched, I'm going to add a little bit of ink at this side as well. But I'm not tearing the edges of this one. I'm keeping it nice and crisp to match the first layer on the other side of the card. And I think you'll agree, just adding that tiny little bit of ink to the edge does pull everything together with as far as how the colours work. There we are. So we'll just put that on there. You can see it looks more aged now. It doesn't stand out as being quite as stark as it was. Double-sided tape again. Just take away the backing. and pop that in place. This is a very easy card to do, but it is really, really pretty. And there's lots of toppers and card pieces and decorative papers, and of course those internal pieces as well that all match beautifully, so you've got lots of choices within the set. So there, of course, you could decorate with your gems, you could add flowers, you could have leaves, pieces of ribbon, sentiments. You can do whatever you want. I'm just going to bring the original one back in just to show I've used a little spray of flowers there and some ribbon. In fact, if I put the two together, you can see how you can have the opening either to the right, the smaller version to the right, or to the left. It doesn't matter which way round you have that card, it's entirely up to you, but it does give you the choices. I do hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and you will find, as I say, many ways of building up similar cards that are just as beautiful with the many toppers and papers that are in the kit.